what do you think are good things to put in practice so that I don't get completely disconnected from studying and from a routine this holiday season and as things start coming up, that maybe personal responsibilities start to increase a little bit more, but this is still extremely important. And a good score is really vital because, I mean, I could wait another cycle, right? Like I could apply later on, but in the best of circumstances, I'd be applying with my January score. So what do you think might be some good things, good habits I can get into now, especially since November wasn't disclosed, so I can't really see what my weakest section was or something like that. I'm kind of in the air. Um, I'm feeling very disoriented, I guess is a good word to explain. So what can I do? What can be maybe efficient tactics to put in practice now so when what are like holidays come around and families are coming over, I'm still making sure I'm having my study hours, I'm having my things. Um, I'm having LSAT done first and then other things can come later on in the day.
It's a good question. Yeah, it's a reasonable one. And we're all in the same boat with the holidays, potentially getting in the way of those more quote unquote solo endeavors like this, where family and others may not understand. Someone wrote earplugs. Yeah, earplugs could be one thing. Gabby, I saw you raised your hand. Do you have more on that?
Yeah, actually, I totally empathize in that I'm also a student right now. And I understand that with finals and everything, it can be very difficult to prioritize LSAT studying when there's a final next week or a paper to write. But I think most importantly is if you feel like you're struggling to hold yourself accountable, then finding people that will help you stay accountable. So if that's a study group, if that's a friend or family member, ultimately you want to be committed to this process, and commitment doesn't have to mean, you're planning on spending 12 hours on Christmas Day studying. Try and take these things week by week and focus on each day and habit formation and what you have the capacity to do instead of worrying about what you might not have the capacity to do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. So keep the energy going, even just a little bit every single day has an impact over time. Others, Sochita? Or Natalie, go ahead. You haven't spoken yet.
I'm sorry. No, I would just say like my recommendation is something that I've done with my parents is I tell them, when I go home and I visit for a couple days, I say, hey, like I need 2 hours today. I need my me time. Like hold me accountable, but I need that uninterrupted time. Like I need you to respect that and just kind of be clear about it. Just say I need at least 2 hours today. Just letting me be in my room, or if you have a home office or wherever, and just being clear about that. I think that's the communication, because family members, it's so easy to, if you're especially like sitting in a living room and have all your stuff out, yeah, you're out in the open and they're gonna, be like, hey, can you help with the dishes? Can you help cook something? Can you let the dog out? Can you go run this errand? But if you kind of like remove yourself and very clear, like before it happens, it's, I'm not trying to remove myself from family time or friend time, but just saying, hey, like this is my boundary. I understand that this time is important for family, but this time is also important for me because this is potential admittance into law school and scholarship money and going where I want to go to my first pick school or my second pick school. And I think that clarity helps people understand like why you need 2 hours away from them. And it generally makes it so much easier because they're like, no, that's understandable. I get that because this is kind of like a job and it doesn't just stop when you're at home. You've got to keep working at it, and that's what's important.
Love it. Thanks for that, Natalie. Yeah, I put together a little while ago the LSAT Mastery dashboard someone mentioned accountability in the chat, which made me think about it. So the idea was to track what you're putting in and then track what you're getting out. So if you're putting in X number of hours per week, X number of problems you complete, that's an objective measure you can bring to your family and say, hey, I've got to hit at least X number of questions completed every single day to keep moving forward towards my goal. And you could make up whatever number you want. You could say 10 questions a day. You could say 50 questions a day. But at least if you have that objective measure you can point to say, hey, you know what? I'm really low today and I need the next 2 hours to get up to my number for the day. Just like people do like Fitbit daily tracking for number of steps. This could be like your LSAT tracking per day to say, hey, well, I haven't hit my number yet, so you got to give me a couple hours so I can get there to keep the momentum going, because they understand that the goal at the end is important, but they may not understand the intermediate steps along the way to get you there. So Cheetah, I saw you raised your hand a little while ago. You still have thoughts to share around this?
Oh yeah, just to answering Sarah's question, and I love what Natalie says. I can totally relate. You know, during the holidays, we're all get really busy. For me, this past week with Thanksgiving was really hard for me. While preparing and cooking for Thanksgiving, I feel guilty about not studying. However, when I had that thought, I was telling myself that tonight you're gonna put in at least 2 hours, and that 2 hours, it's not about. So for me now, especially during this time, it's not about how much you put in. It's the quality over quantity. So the 2 hours, what do you need to get done? So I would do a timed logical reasoning section at night, so that tomorrow, the 2 hours that I'm going to spend, I will do a blind review on half of the questions and really go in depth on that. So, you know, whenever you feel guilty or feel like, you know, there's a lot going on at home, holidays, just set a time to yourself, even at night. Like, I'm not a night owl. I'm not a night person, but I know that at the end, it'll all be worth it if you just set that 2 hours just to keep that mindset around LSAT.
Thanks, Sochita. Awesome. Any other questions or comments for Sarah around all of this? Sarah, how are you feeling?
One thing I've always found helpful is just writing down everything, like whether it's like a tentative goal or it's like weekly or whatever. It helps to have something written down. That way it's not just like a thought looming in your head. It's like you don't always have to follow it, but like just literally seeing it on paper, you're like, okay, I do have to get done this 2 hours of studying on reading comp or do this drill set or whatever. So definitely keeping like a journal or like a planner that I've found is like really, really helpful.
Oh, thanks for that, Jack. Yeah, the planners, the schedules, the accountability of some form, whatever works for you, is something that you can point to see where you're at. And it's also something, like I said, you can show to others to give them that external confirmation that this is something you need. And it's part of that step-by-step process. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, Jack. Ayaka?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to add, and this isn't as profound as what other people have been saying, but I like to find small things that kind of help me get to my desk. So I usually find having freshly painted nails to like be a motivator to want to type. So like I'm like when I have freshly painted nails, I'm like, yes, I'm gonna study today. And it helps me get to the desk easier. So find something like that to get you there.
Nice. No, that's a good one. Yeah. I mean, I can't relate to the nails thing personally, but I'm sure there's an equivalent if I gave it some thought. It's all about what works for you. And you got to make it your own, right?
I'm interested because I know I'm working full time, like 40 hours a week, and I know a lot of people are either in school or also working full time. And I just had a question. Like last week, I normally do like 20 to 25 hours a week, but last week by Wednesday, I was just like feeling very stressed. Like I was like, oh, I need to be putting more hours in. I had gotten to like 17 hours by Wednesday and was completely burned out the rest of the week. Like couldn't focus, like couldn't go to class because I was like, I just can't, like I'm not sleeping at this point. So I guess I'm just wondering, people who are putting in more hours, like do you find that it's just that it's helpful, or like after a certain point you are burned out, and how do you deal with coming back from that?
It's a great question. Who here has experienced burnout at some point? I see Dipali raised your hand. Others may have as well. Yeah, Alana?
Oh, yeah. I've been feeling burnout.
And Sochita? See, Sochita raised your hand as well.
Yeah, I have definitely. Actually, like not long ago, it was like a month ago. Um, because I was studying for like 8 hours a day and sometimes 10, including like the two classes every Monday or Tuesday. And it was a lot for me and it happened really fast. Um, it was like I was like there was one day when I was sick and couldn't look at like another LSAT, another like logical reasoning question, and that was like it for me. I dropped everything and stopped doing everything, and I took a 2 day break. And that was really good because initially I was planning on taking only 1 day, but then even after 1 day, and I woke up that next day and still feeling like I need another day off to come back. So for you, Casey, I think it's and now I've learned to really not trying to just catch all the fish in one net. It's I'm trying to get like quality over quantity. So even now, like I do 3 hours a day and I don't guilt myself over that. And I like literally have to say it out loud. Like, Sophia, like it's okay, it's 3 hours, but you've got great like review out of say like reading column, like 2 passages, let's say, so it's definitely more quality over quantity. Like it's not about because it's like I don't do anything at all. It's just LSAT, 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 LSAT. Nothing else is important. But I've learned to also pick an interest in something like playing games on on like your iPhone or like watching a show, reading a book, do something else that also it can contribute. Like sometimes you would do something and it like it makes you think about LSAT in a way. I don't know if that's like weird. Or sometimes watch a YouTube video about LSAT related or definitely that. And I don't feel guilty if you need to take a day off, take a day off, take 2 days off. It's very healthy.
Thanks for sharing your experience, Sochita. Yeah, I think that variety is important. Setting limits is important. I want to clarify, just so folks are clear on this, the Mastery Dashboard is not there to maximize the numbers. Higher numbers are not automatically better numbers. 30 hours a week or 40 hours a week, maybe more LSAT in a week than is reasonable for you to do. And so if you find that when you increase the hours above 30, your LSAT energy drops below 5. If that's the case for you, then maybe you need to keep your LSAT study hours below 30 and add in more variety, where that could be a little bit of Sudoku or a little bit of a game or a little bit of just relaxation. And whatever brings your energy up is what you want to stick with. The idea here is tracking and documenting so that you're not relying solely on your energy or emotions in the moment, but rather you have something to look back to as to a history as to where your energy was last week or last month. And you could see what was going well at that time if it was better then.
Hey, Steve, can I jump in this?
Yeah, please. Please.
Hey, y'all. Hey. Look at that. Y'all are so beautiful. I'm gonna mute my little. Hey, so it's interesting, right? Because this test, man, will have you do, and I think I said this in a group that I'm in a couple days ago. It'll have you questioning yourself, right? It'll have you questioning. All of us have gone to college and we're attacking this thing. We're the smartest one in our class. We were where some of us are in graduate programs or have gotten master's degrees. You're so smart. And then here comes this test and you get answers wrong for the first time in your life. And you're questioning yourself. So I'm gonna give you 2 words that mean a lot to me. And I think I've told you these before. I'm gonna tell you again: forgiveness and grace. Right? Forgiveness and grace. Forgiveness for yourself, guys. You got to forgive yourself. It's all good. You get an answer wrong, you get an answer wrong. Right? Grace. Extend yourself some grace here. Like we're learning. You're literally learning to teach. You're teaching your brain right now to think differently. I was doing a question earlier. Where's Alondra? Alondra was in the group I was in earlier. We were doing a question earlier. And literally the question you had to really be a little rude in the thinking. Huh, Alondra? We had to literally look at the question from a perspective of something that we probably wouldn't say to someone in real life, but on the LSAT, we had to. So our brains are doing something right now. They don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. You're dreaming about LSAT questions. I hope that's just not me, but because I am. But about the burnout part. So the other day I ended up in the fetal position on the floor. with my dogs, guys. I was knocked, I was laid out. I said, I got to take a nap. I just had to. I had to take a nap. And it was okay. Right. And like Sochita told us, we have to take a moment here, and it's okay. If you miss a day, you miss a day. That's all right. I think what Steve is very consistent about, just don't give up on this whole thing. Right. So if you need a break, you take the break and then jump back into it. But I want you to extend yourself the forgiveness and the grace to it all, right? Because sometimes you're going to need that break, Casey. You're going to need that break, Samantha. You're going to need that break, Natalie. You're going to need that break to tell yourself it's all right, right? And to rejuvenate. Guys, you can't give to something from an empty pot, you see? You can't give to, you guys know what that means? You can't give to something when you're not refilled and filled in enough yourself. So make sure that you're doing those things. I went the other day, so I want to share with y'all. And then Steve, I'm gonna shut up. I went the other day, I was so tired. And I said, I got to find something. And I went and I floated. Did I tell y'all about this? No, I went to a flotation, a pod, guys. This is how deep it was. I was tired, and I went and I floated in some water. My mama thought I was crazy. She don't know what's going on with me. I went and floated in some water. That's how I was. Not remember sitting in the water, and my mind wanted to think about LSAT, and I told myself I had to quiet my mind. I had to literally tell myself it's okay, no LSAT right now, right? And just focus on being in this moment, being in the present. So we talked a lot about this before, about meditation and things like that. Jump into that stuff, quiet your mind, and give it an opportunity to re-energize itself. But be forgiving, right? And extend yourself a great deal of grace. Steve, I thank you. I always got to jump in there when people start talking like that now. We got to stay positive. We in this together, guys. Okay, I'm not. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet now. Okay, thanks, Steve.
We all love you, Michon. We all love you, and we love your energy. You get so much positive feedback every single time you speak. Always a pleasure. I always appreciate having you in here. I actually tried a float tank once a couple of years ago. I was in there for an hour. I think by the end of the hour, I was finally relaxed, and that's when the lights came on. It was time to get out. So maybe I got to go back to one sometimes and try again.
You got to do it a few times. This lady told me, she said you got to do it a few times for it to work. Because I told her first when I got in there, clearly this was not for the first 5 minutes. You had to take some time. Mm-hmm. First, you had to figure out why you were in this thing in the first place. What led me here, And it was the LSAT. But whatever, and don't take your LSAT books with you when you go to float, y'all. They don't like that.
They're gonna get wet, yeah.
Relaxing, she said.
No, it's all right. Thank you for your energy. Love it, love it, love it. Yes, Samantha's saying, can you call me every morning?
Hey, yeah, I sure will. If you're in the little group me thing we created, absolutely. I try to drop some positive love in there every day. If you guys aren't in it, you can shoot me your email. I'll add it to you. But we try to send some positive vibes and everything every morning. That's what I try to do. So absolutely. It's called we called it LSAT motivation. We ought to call it Steve's Kids, but that's fine.
Definitely. Please put the link in the chat, or folks DM Michon to be connected there. I think that it's definitely a great place to get support and connect with each other. Great place. I know folks are finding study partners there and such. So definitely all please get connected.
Steve, I'd share my experience.
Yeah, please.
I don't really know how I'm going to be able to follow up Michon, but I'm going to give it my best go. My advice is pretty much, I've gone through burnout, I would say twice now. And it's very clear that it happened both times when I was putting in way more hours of just really hard drilling. So I know a lot of people are probably at that stage in their prep. And so if you do notice your score dropping significantly and you feel like you're just getting overly frustrated with certain problems, it is very okay to take a step back and breathe, take some days off, kind of let your mind decompress a little bit before going back at it. Because sometimes having too much stress all at one time, it can just make you feel kind of cloudy. And the other thing I was going to say is I've been in this now for a while. And so you're just naturally going to go through bumps, and you just have to be able to understand that and just be patient and know that through the process and through the time, you will just naturally get better at questions, games, passages. And it's important to always keep your morale up. There are going to be days when you just know you're going to you feel like you're going to fail and it was all a waste, but just know that you have to overcome those to get to the highest moments of your prep. And it is a grueling journey, but you really do have to keep yourself motivated and take the necessary time off if you're noticing these things. But yeah, definitely be patient is good advice. It'll come.
Definitely. Thanks for that, Jack. We had one comment from Iman just saying that, what if you don't have the luxury, in all caps, What if you don't have the luxury of taking time off?
It's a good question. If you don't have the luxury of taking time off, I recommend trying to figure out something that's a way of distracting you from, or something like I do different things to channel my energy elsewhere. I like to work out, like go for a run if I'm really in my head. Some people like to meditate. I mean, if you really can't take any time off, I would recommend trying a different outlet to channel maybe that cloudiness or that frustration. Because anything that can take your mind away from the LSAT even for a little while is going to help you long term. Just getting too mixed up with it can be bad for your score and for your just approaching the questions sometimes.
100%. Thanks for that, Jack. Iman, I want to just invite you for a moment, and then I saw Ariel raise your hand. Iman, when you say taking time off, can you clarify? Do you mean taking time off from LSAT studying period or taking time off from work? Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so kind of both. I also work 40 hours a week. I work full time, and thank God I don't have family responsibilities, or else it would have been just a lot. So I definitely applaud those of you who, take care of your family, work, and study for the LSAT at the same time. But for me to take time off, it means taking time off from studying. And I have this weird obsession where I open my calendar every night and I'm like, okay, 24 days, 25 days left, 26 days left. And I'm like, if I average 200 questions a week or 3 PTs a week, I can get through 12 PTs by, January 15th. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no time. If I take some time off, then I'm going to be left behind. Then I can't get through 3 PTs this week. And it's just really demoralizing. It's messing with my psyche at this point. And I feel like if I take a minute off, and just to put things into perspective, so last night my friends insisted on inviting me out for a couple of drinks. And I'm like, no, I need to be sharp. I can't have any, alcohol in my system, and I can't go for a night out when I have to study. They didn't buy it. They forced me to go outside. And honestly, I did feel a little bit better having spent some time with my friends and, just interacting with other humans, because I live alone and all I do is work and study. But at the same time, I did feel a little guilty about it. When I came home, I started beating myself up. You should have stayed home. You should have studied. Now you're behind. And today I've been making up for it. Like, I woke up at 5 this morning to make up for the time I should have studied last night. But, that means I got 2.5 hours of sleep. And now I'm really thinking about the decisions I made today. Like, I could have gotten more sleep. Maybe I would have been more productive. I don't know who mentioned this, but quality over quantity, definitely. It's a real thing. I've studied 8.5 hours today, but I feel like I learned nothing. Sorry, that was a long rant.
No, it's important. I think these are things that a lot of folks struggle with. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, quality over quantity. So if you got 2.5 hours of sleep, what was your studying like at 5 a.m.?
Absolutely terrible. I was falling asleep.
So I'm not going to say you shouldn't socialize. Socializing is okay. Maybe there's a middle ground to be found with socializing, drinking, and such. But the other thing that stuck out to me is around X number of questions per day, 12 prep tests you're taking the January LSAT, right? So
yeah.
Is that the right goal to have, to get that many questions solved in this 20-something days?
I don't know. I at this point, I can't even tell right from wrong. But from what I've picked up from the folks in this group and from a number of Reddit forums, the more you practice, the better. But personally, I feel like I really need to take a step back and go through the basics again, because I feel like I'm just stuck at this point. I've kind of plateaued and I make the same mistakes. And it's funny, sometimes I do worse. The stress of this test and the anxiety is just getting to me. Like, I just freeze sometimes when I, click start and the timer starts running the clock down. Sometimes I just freeze and, I collect my thoughts after 30 seconds and it just feels like my soul left my body and came back after 30 seconds. It's just the anxiety is crippling. I don't know if anybody else has ADHD and like test anxiety, but it's so bad.
There are a lot of folks here to support you. A lot of folks here have raised their hands and want to invite their voices in. A lot of folks. I think Ariel was first, please.
Yeah, so what I was going to ask kind of speaks directly to what Iman is kind of going through and suffering with currently. So just dealing with the guilt of not studying and the anxiety that comes with that. Because it's kind of like you're in a lose-lose situation. Like you're stressed and anxious when you're studying, and then when you're not studying, you're also stressed and anxious. So how is everyone dealing with, I guess, kind of reminding yourself like it's okay not to study for maybe a few hours or a few days, especially for those of us who have maybe more time left before we take the LSAT. In my case, I have 4 months, so I'm not feeling as stressed, but I assume that once mid-March rolls around and I only have 2 or 3 weeks left or 4 weeks, I'm going to start feeling that same pressure, as it sounds like Iman is kind of going through right now, where it's like, okay, I can't go out, I can't, I definitely can't indulge in drinking or anything, because if I wake up late, then I can't study, and then my psyche is all messed up. So just how to deal with the guilt from not studying is really my question.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, but definitely everyone experiences that. I experience guilt with how much I get done too. Ayaka and then Alana.
Yeah. So I think part of it is, what do you consider studying, right? I've said this a couple times before, but even when I'm working, in the back of my mind, the LSAT brain is working. So whenever someone's like, unless we do this, we can't do that, I'm like, oh, it's an unless conditional. Let me put that down and kind of run through an exercise. Like, so not that that's full on drilling or anything, but that mind is still working. Also, if you have problems with friends asking to go out, the thing I usually do is, hey, let me explain an LSAT concept to you. If you get it, we'll go out. And if you don't, I will continue. And if you have okay friends, they'll never talk to you again. If you have great friends, they will be like, hey, let's do that again. Like, tell me what you're learning. And I have conversations with friends who have no intention of taking the LSAT, who know necessary and sufficient conditions. So I think that's kind of where you can, like, I told Steve this, it's a little bit of a weird obsession for me at the moment, the LSAT, but it like, bring it into all parts of your life, because I work full time as well. I don't have 8 hours to sit and do it, but that LSAT mind is working all the time in the background. So, I don't think it has to be pure drilling, pure doing however many questions, but I've thought about conditionals all day today and I feel good about it. Like, so I think there's a way to do it without stressing yourself out.
Those are some fantastic ideas, Ayaka. I love the idea of bringing your friends in on it and giving some accountability, and then also roping them into. Tyler gave a comment that one of his friends is studying now because of the example he set. Super cool. Love it. Alana, and then Samantha, then Sochita.
Hi. Yeah, this is Alana. I just wanted to share something that happened for me, which is a huge breakthrough and definitely worth sharing. So last night was the first night that I've got 8 hours of sleep in maybe in 2020. I started a job in May and I've come into work every day on 4 hours of sleep or less, because of all the different things happening in my life. And last night I was dealing with all the LSAT paperwork, like the location request, and I had to do a biographical change form, and they still needed tax information from me. And so I was busy with LSAT paperwork and I didn't get to study after I met with my tutor. And I was like, about to do what I do every night, which is like I could get a little studying done, just an hour, just a game, you know, at midnight or 1 a.m. And then I wind down at like 3 or 4 and get up at 7. And I just decided today to see, like, because I've been so struggling to give myself sleep, like what the difference would be. And I came into work today and it was so weird. I felt like I was drunk on the job because I actually had slept 8 hours. I was like, oh my God, this is so weird. What's wrong with me? Oh, I'm actually rested. And it was a very interesting thing to let go of that control and give myself that break of sleep. But I've been performing so well today that, like, I'm going to try it, but try to then be bringing in the studying under like more balanced hours. But the rapport that I had with my boss today at work, the feedback that I got was just like totally stellar. I put a proposed order in, the federal judge signed it, like it was crazy. And my boss was just like, oh my God, great job, you know? And I was just like, oh, the only difference is I actually slept last night. And so I'm going to try that.
Kudos to you on that, Alana. Yeah, it sounds like that's one of those metrics to track. If you notice that there's a significant uplift in your energy or in your results based on a factor like that, then that's something to definitely note and keep up. So kudos to you. That's incredible, Alana.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not stupid. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, definitely. I know, Samantha, you had raised your hand as well.
I think I'm muted. Wait.
No, you were unmuted before. Can you switch it back?
I'm back normal now.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I finally took that one day you told me to last week, and I did another one this weekend. And I have noticed the difference as far as just with me studying. I've gone back into what I wasn't comfortable with studying first, because if your brain isn't going to absorb anything, just stop. Don't force it. It's because you'll be more focused on, I'm not taking anything in, I'm not learning anything, I'm tired, which I think we all don't want to admit that we're tired, because we do get that guilt trip of, well, this is my test day, this is when I need to do this, et cetera, et cetera. But they are important. I do feel ever since the one you made me do, Steve, that I was very reluctant to take, I'm grateful for it, because I now know, like, I've been studying for this thing for a year. I don't have any friends anymore because they're just like, girl, just what are you doing? So, and I'm cool with that, because one day y'all gonna need me in the courtroom, probably, maybe, I don't know. But I think take those days and don't feel guilty for them. And I think that's just something that we do just because we've been like ODing with studying. And I know I have, but I've gone through, like yesterday was my light study day. I wanted to take yesterday off fully, but if you do have those guilt trips where it's like, okay, I don't want to just take the full day because my test date is near, I'll listen to a podcast, I'll go through a couple of drills, and by drills, I will go through like the top 5 questions that I've been struggling with over the week, particularly from the same section. If not, just take one from the 3, being that we're flexing, right? The flex, I call it flexing, the flexing right now. Take it that way, and then just take those 5, go to a deep dive on your explanations, and go from there. That should really just give you a solid hour. And from there, you can just, okay, I've put in the time, I've touched each section, and now I'm going to get some rest, because you can't absorb anything if you don't have anything to absorb it with. It took you making me do it, because I really did not want to do it, because I just kept feeling like, well, I can get this score, but then if I look back on it, I'll say, well, I didn't spend enough time doing it. But you have to be there to take the test, and you can't be there to take the test if you're tired. So that's just something we have to take that, eat that humble pie, say, look, I'm tired, be tired. That's a strength in itself. So that'll be my little bit, because I have definitely experienced the burnout. I have definitely experienced the we not drinking with the friends. Get you a glass, drink it in class with Steve. We are here at this point. Like, this just is where we are. But no, that's what I would offer as a suggestion to anyone struggling with the burnout, being that I've recently hopped off the burnout boat. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your experience, Samantha. I'm glad that you've benefited so much from having taken off that day. We're all human. We all need to rest every now and then. I've certainly pushed myself too much at times, and I definitely suffer for it. You know, I build in off days into the schedule for a reason. A full 7-day week has weekends for a reason. You got to have your rest days, and rest days are training days. They help you gear up for getting back into it. But if you're overtired, if you're sleep deprived, quality is going to suffer of your studying. Not all study hours are created equal. They're based on your energy level and what you're putting in, not just sleep, but also diet, exercise, relaxation. Your brain's got to be at 110% for you to achieve your fullest potential on this exam. And so that requires taking breaks every now and then. It's not about the total number of questions you achieve, whether you're doing 12 exams between now and the January LSAT or 6 exams between now and then. The quality of your work and the review will make the biggest difference, not the absolute number of exams you complete. So just remember that. I know, Sochita, you've been waiting for a while. Please share what you have.
Yeah, just to answer to Iman, I don't know if I say your name correctly.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so well, first off, I'll just have to say that don't feel like you need to study. It's the feeling of the need and have to study. It's I want to study. Like just that, changing that could change a lot. And also like make it fun, make it enjoyable to you. Don't make it like it's like a job. It's like a work that you don't that it's hard, but you have to do it. So for me, and when you have been doing drillings, and I know a lot of people, and all the, you see online and people saying the more practice, the better you're gonna, familiar yourself with that. After, I think it was Elena presentation about like just evidence and conclusion, because I was doing drilling sections after sections and timed, untimed, blind review and everything. And just, I took a step back and I just did I remember I did 2 sections of just analyzing evidence and conclusion to test myself how quickly I can do them. So I did them untimed, and then I think I did 2, and then I went back to doing logical reasoning timed, and to see how quickly I can spot evidence and conclusion. And that was my intention. And whatever, not to be like, oh, I'm gonna get 20 questions correct. It's not that. My intention was just to see how quickly I can do those. The other thing too, I was inspired by Steve meme or post on Facebook and blog. I read a lot of them. It was this. I was doing that instead of just doing drilling, I would do a full section of destroying the argument. So now that I'm I know that, okay, conclusion, evidence, I got it, easy enough, right? I got back on track. I was looking at gaps. There's always gaps in argument, and I make fun of it. And you can read Steve's meme, and sometimes he'll read it and just make fun of it, and just laugh it out and make it more fun. So I would do those and just recognize that there's always gap in that, and then get back to drilling. So yeah, if that could help, if you're feeling frustrated and feel like you're getting nowhere, take a step back to do those basic things could really help a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So Sochita, I'm glad you found that helpful. Yeah, treat it like a game. Try to have fun with it. There's so many different perspectives from which you can attack these problems. And it's about what makes it fun and enjoyable and keeps your energy up. Iman, you have a response on that?
Yeah, just wanted to add something real quick. To your point where you said you don't need to take 12 practice tests if it's not yielding to, high results, and taking a step back and taking less tests could be more productive for you and, yield to better outcomes. But I feel like personally for me, it's become like an obsession. I constantly want to prove myself that I'm worthy of going to, a top ranked law school. And, I don't know if anybody else has this voice in their head, it's constantly telling you you're gonna mess up, you're gonna flunk out, and you're like, okay, so if I take a practice test right now and score a 158, will you leave me alone? And I feel like it's become an obsession for me. And every time I take a practice test, I approach it from the wrong perspective. I approach it, as Marissa said, it's like I hate it. I hate it so much. I want to prove it wrong. And I feel like it's a terrible, terrible approach. And I just realized that now. So if anyone has any advice on how to change your perspective and how to actually start to like the test and look at it as, as a learning opportunity rather than a very toxic sort of relationship with yourself and the annoying voice in your head.
That's real and that's powerful. And I'm glad that you were willing to share that, Iman, because I think it's something a lot of folks have experienced, myself included. Do you mind if we play with this a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. So what's the score you would get that would make you feel you were worthy?
Anything above a 160. It's funny because 3 weeks ago I started with a 157 and now I'm down to a 151, believe it or not. On my most recent test, I got 15 questions wrong in logical reasoning, which is my strongest section. I usually score like -4, -5.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like when I took prep test 76, I'm looking at the stimulus, but my brain is like, what is this? Where's the conclusion? Where's the premise? It was so I don't even know what the right word is. It's like my brain completely stopped functioning, and I was like a toddler. I'm like struggling to read what's on the screen, and a section that I'm very, very strong in, a section that I usually just knock it out of the park, it just became a big obstacle, and I dropped like 8 points.
You're running yourself into the ground, right? It's like the more you do, the worse you do.
Yeah. It's like a downward trend.
But let me ask you, why 160? Why is 160 the number for you?
I feel like it's that cutoff where you go from average to elite, and my whole life I've been an average kid, and I've always tried to be more than I actually am, and it's like a very toxic form of self-destruction. You don't want to accept yourself for who you are, so you try to envision this a very unrealistic future for yourself, and you kind of, like you said, you drive yourself to the ground because you keep telling yourself that you can be a genius, but certain things are just not within our reach. Like, I have 25 days, and I think it's very realistic to score in the mid 50s than to score in the low 60s at this point. But I continue to hold on to that image, and it's like it's destroying me at this point.
Yeah. I'm not going to try and give you an answer because I think on one level you already know what the problem is and you already know what to do. The question is, like, I think, and I'll call it this because I experienced it too with various things. I mean, various things, including the LSAT, around like the insecurity, right? Where you said 160 will be enough. I have a feeling if you got a 160, you then be looking at the next person who got 165, next person who got 170. There's always going to be more, right? So I'll leave it there. There's a lot of other people who want to give you advice and support, but we could always circle back. I see Mary's raised your hand for a while.
Yeah. Hey guys. I'm also going through burnout right now, not necessarily from overstudying, but I think just life in general. Unfortunately, in the community that I live in, we've had a lot of COVID-19 deaths that have personally affected my family and my friends. And it's just really gotten to me. However, I wanted to kind of add what I can to the conversation around burnout and how to continuously stay positive. I try to think of it as an injury. Like, no one's going to take an injury less seriously than they would, a broken arm or broken leg, something like that. And trying to think of burnout like that, taking it seriously is really important. You want to be able to give yourself that time off, give yourself the recovery, rehab, whatever you need to do to kind of get back into it. Maybe that's you take a day off and then you slowly build yourself back into, however many hours you were studying a day. Maybe you just take 30 minutes the first day, you do an hour the next day, or 45 minutes, whatever it takes to just kind of slowly reintroduce yourself to that. And Iman, for you and for anybody else, I know that I've also kind of struggled with this too, is when you get into a situation where you're like, I don't deserve to be here. I don't deserve to be, doing any of this. Everybody's so much better than me. what I would want to remind you is negative words have such a big impact on your thoughts. So instead of saying, don't forget X, you have that word don't. And that our brains have a really hard time processing negative words, and they remember negative or other words better. So they might remember forget. A better way of looking at it is remember. Instead of don't forget, use remember. And it's just a really good way to change even like the small things and like tell yourself, I belong here. Or maybe not necessarily I'm better than everybody, or maybe not even like I'm as good as everybody, but I still deserve to be here. So that's kind of all I have. I just wanted to add that and let everybody know that, you know, even the small things matter.
Thank you, Mary. Yeah, I think the positive framing is really important. The positive verbiage. One thing I'm thinking about is affirmations. I think Mishan was alluding to those in the group me. So I don't know how many of you are in the group me, or if if you're in there, but I would definitely look to others for support on the daily basis. And if you have this negative voice in your head knocking you down, maybe you need to replace it or supplement it with a positive voice that's even louder to balance it out. I'm thinking of the angel and the devil on the shoulders, right? So to look, if you have a worst enemy on one side, have a best friend on the other who's going to lift you up even higher. And there's more things we could play with around that in the future. But Matthew, I saw you raise your hand.
Yeah, so this works both generally and for the specific case we're talking about now, is that nothing is arbitrary, and nothing is. I don't want to use the word logic because it has a lot of meaning in the LSAT, but there's a method to the madness. So when you're looking at something, you're like, oh my God, do I know this? Do I not? Well, you clearly do. There's a path to it. It's not arbitrary. It's not random. Like, you've done the work, you know it. So don't try and beat yourself up about, you know, oh my God, has everything gone out one year, or in 1 year, out the other for the last day and a half? No, it hasn't. It's still there. You just kind of have to tease it out. And, you know, the second point, this might not work for everyone as well, but there's something that, you know, I've told myself, I'm doing it in April, but, you know, probably a month before, I'm going to very seriously ask myself as well, are you on the correct path and are you ready to take that test? If the answer is yes, then that will beat down some of the anxiety, because then you know. If the answer is no, that's not a bad answer. That just means, okay, I can delay the test. There's going to be how many other tests that year before the next cycle goes on. Now, that might not work for some people if they're based on their schedules, but don't look at it as almost a do or death, because that'll hinder you as well.
Yeah, it's not all about one test. No one particular test tape will make or break you. Of course, there are timelines and there are some cutoffs about this cycle versus the next cycle. But knowing that there is not just one LSAT test date period, but rather one nearly every month could hopefully, in many cases, alleviate some of the anxiety or the urgency around it. Casey?
Yeah, kind of going off what everybody's been saying. And yeah, thank you everybody for being so vulnerable and for the validation. I feel like when Mashan was like, who's been dreaming about the LSAT? I'm like, me, like, I can't stop dreaming about it. Like, I'm like doing logic games in my head. It's like a nightmare. But like taking a break and like reading like a book or something has helped me. But kind of, Aman, going back to one thing that you said, I've struggled with a lot. Like, doing really well on logic games when I thought like I had that nailed down months ago, you know, and being like, oh no, like what happened? But I think something like a mindset that has helped me is by being like, okay, like I've done this before. Like you said that logic games is your best section, like you know that you can do it. So it's just like having that mindset of like, I can do this. Like I didn't do this for some reason this time, but like I know I have the ability to do that, has been so helpful for me, because I'm like, it's not that I'm not getting it or that I'm dumb or something. It's just that I need to approach it differently, or I need more sleep or something like that. So I don't know if that will work for you, but that's definitely something that's helped me.
Thanks, Casey. Iman, how are you feeling right now?
Definitely more motivated. Hearing everyone's story is really inspiring. I feel like I'm not the only one who is feeling burnt out, and also I just want to say thank you to everyone who offered their advice and words of encouragement and wisdom in the chat. I definitely think that I need to take a step back and maybe take a day or two off, and I'm already contemplating what I want to do with my free time tomorrow. You're gonna have to excuse me because I don't remember who said this, but someone said, I think it was Casey. You said you started reading. Yeah, so I'm a huge bookworm, and I just remembered that for the past 2 months I haven't touched a book, and I feel like I've lost so much of myself in this progress. So I think kind of going back to my roots and doing the things that I genuinely enjoy are gonna boost my self-esteem and also my morale in general. I feel like my life has become a very boring cycle of working and studying, and I feel like I need to break out of that. And I remembered this TikTok video that I saw. This person who got a 165, he said that he treated his studying the same way he treated his workout regimen. He would work out 3 hours and also study 3 hours. He said working out 3 hours helped him just as much as studying did. So I feel like maintaining that physical activity, and I'm like tied to my chair. I just, I feel like I need to get up sometimes and not be in front of a computer. And definitely, everyone's advice was really helpful. And I feel like I need to change my approach. And tomorrow is a new day. I feel like when I wake up tomorrow, I'm not gonna just, skip breakfast and start studying. I think I'm gonna make like a nutritious breakfast, maybe go for a run, maybe a walk. We'll see. But thanks to everyone for their advice.
Basically, my issue kind of stems from, well, I have a study plan and it's been working for me pretty well actually, but what I find is it's hard to keep focus in my study plans. And I find that when I am studying, a lot of the time my mind wanders and I would get anxious or I can't quite think straight. So I think that's mostly my main issue.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So a couple things. One direction we could take is, where does your mind wander to? Where does it wander towards? And then why is it wandering at all? Mm-hmm. Why is it hard to stay focused? Yeah. Do you have any ideas about what that could be?
I think it is. I just kind of start thinking about like future plans and, like, what am I going to have for dinner? Or, what am I going to do tomorrow to study? Even though I do have a plan, it's just, for some reason, it's a little bit hard to keep the concentration. And it might be like my brain is fatigued and I just really can't like look at LSAT material for much longer, but it's just like mindless stuff and stuff that really doesn't matter, like overthinking. And to answer your question, Ben, I start off like, I wake up at 8:30 or 8. I take like an hour to eat and get kind of prepared and do like a light review before I like dive into my material. So then I study from 10 to 11, take a 15-minute break, go from 11:15 to 12:15, another 15-minute break, 12:30 to 1:30, and then I would go ahead and take a whole hour break. So, and the mornings are usually when I have like my most effective study hours. But after the hour break that I take, usually when I come back, I'm like, okay, like my mind is wandering.
That's quite the structure you have, Nusha. What else are you doing besides the LSAT, if anything?
I am a full-time student, so I also just have like schoolwork and stuff. And on 2 days of the week, I work. So I have a job and I go to that.
Okay, so full-time student and you're working a couple days a week. and you're studying for the LSAT with a fairly structured schedule during the periods that you're studying.
Yes.
Okay. I see that Ben wrote in the chat about taking 5-minute breaks every so often. I'm guessing he's referring to the Pomodoro technique.
Yeah. I think I should try that. I think what I'm trying to do here is, because I know the LSAT is 35-minute sections, I'm like, okay, if I can kind of study for this full hour, then I'll develop like a resistance type to the LSAT, so that when I'm tasked to do the whole 35-minute sections and continue on with that, I won't be fatigued. But I think I will try that, the 5-minute breaks every 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah, I agree, Camilla. It might be better to start that way. I can try it. I'm open to suggestions.
What's your target test date?
I was shooting for June, but now I'm starting to consider August. Yeah.
And what's your college course load like? Because you said full-time, but full-time could mean some different things.
It can be heavy depending on the weeks. It really depends if it's, like weeks of midterms or leaning towards the end of the quarter, and it's a quarter system, so sometimes it can be hectic, but I have actually lowered my amount of classes I take. I used to take 5 and now I'm taking 4 classes, which has its perks, but sometimes it can be demanding. It goes week by week mostly.
What changes for you if you go from June to August in terms of your LSAT timeline or your other obligations?
It was like we were kind of talking about earlier. I just wanted to shoot for June because of the 3 sections. And for August, the 4 sections, I am like, this is all right. However, I would prefer to shoot for the 3 section. I don't really know what could change. I guess just an extra month of studying would be great. But yeah, sorry.
No, sure. I've been talking a lot. We've been getting some voices from the chat, but I want to get some voices on voice as well. Shay, I see you raised your hand. Let's bring you in and share whatever you have to share.
Yes, just going back off of, I don't know, just hearing your course load and hearing kind of how much you have on your plate. When I first started studying, I was doing a really similar thing. It was super busy, just studying every single day. And I found, at least for me, it may be helpful for you, just a few days here or there where you just kind of take a break. You don't even think about LSAT stuff. You kind of just regroup and have you time. I found that to be really beneficial because I was doing the same thing. I'd be sitting every single day and I would zone out here and there, not really giving my full attention to it. But sometimes I found that it's super beneficial to just give yourself the actual break. Take a day, watch Netflix, go run errands, do something. But that may help you a lot if you do feel like you're burning out or anything like that.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'll try that. I think that's like the input that I've generally been getting from everyone in this chat too. They're like, maybe you need a break. So I'll give myself a break and I'll see how that goes. Thank you.
If you look at 4 months versus 6 months, I don't know what it is, but they feel very different to me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a difference of 2 months. It's like a 50% increase, but 4 months is like close to the minimum or average amount of time you might want to allow. But 6 months feels like plenty.
Yeah.
Feels like more than enough. I recommend typically 2 to 3 months at minimum, but more like 5 to 6 to achieve your fullest potential. Mm-hmm. And you're not even starting from zero, and that would be giving you a good 6 months to go for August. Yeah. And four could be okay, but you've also got a lot of other obligations. And I could see busy full-time course load, part-time job, LSAT on top of that. You're clearly dedicated to this. You're blocking off your time down to the minute, an hour-long amount of time, a 15-minute break here and there and such. It's very structured, but it's also like, where's the you time? Where's the relaxation time? Where's the socializing time? Where's the family time?
Mm-hmm.
Even 2 out of those 3 things would be more than enough for most people, and you've got all 3 going.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I think I need to just take it a little easier. And I am looking at the chat, and Jocelyn, I'm not quite sure what a reward system is. I'd love to hear more about that. Is that what Steve was kind of going towards, the whole like taking a break to watch a show?
Jocelyn, please jump in. I was curious about to ask you to elaborate on that as well. I think Jocelyn probably means something even more than that, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
But Jocelyn, please unmute yourself and chime in.
Yeah. So what I was saying was that I, like, for example, I'll use myself. I have a reward system where if I do so many hours, I will reward myself with watching one of my favorite shows, or I'll go and do something fun that I've been really wanting to do and I just haven't had the time to do it. So that way it keeps me motivated. But I'm also giving myself that break, much needed break from studying, because I can totally understand, studying and working and then hitting almost like a mental block where you're not really absorbing the information because you basically have overloaded your brain with so much LSAT data, right, that you're trying to, make sure that you understand. So for me, having like a little reward system to also enforce healthy behavior of like having breaks, for example, is something that I have incorporated to help me kind of break away and make sure that I'm giving myself the time that I need to basically recalibrate before jumping back into the LSAT.
That's good. Thank you. I will try that. Though I do have another question. So how do you, because I personally struggle with this when I am watching a show or I am running errands or I am kind of doing some self-care, I'm anxious in that moment because I'm like, oh no, I should be studying instead. Like, why am I doing this? And I know it's like to better like my health, but I'm like, wait a minute. I think my brain just is like, no, go study instead.
That's a great question, Nusha. I mean, one idea that occurs to me is that not all hours of the day are equally conducive to certain activities. For a number of folks say tonight, and I feel the same way myself, that morning hours are in a way more valuable for more mentally taxing tasks like LSAT studying. And evening hours may not be as conducive to hitting the books. So, for example, if this call ends at 10 p.m. Eastern, and then there are folks who might want to study at 11 p.m. or midnight Eastern, that might not be the most valuable time for LSAT prep because you've just been through the entire day. You're probably pretty tired. Mm-hmm. Alternatively, if you are able to wake up at 7 and hit the books at 8 or 9 a.m., you could be fresh and ready to go then. Like, I would hope that you don't wake up early just to watch TV, but you could be up late and watch some TV to wind down before bed or do one relaxing thing that day.
Yeah, that's great. And Solomon, I saw your chat. So I will actually do more of the schedule and leave more time for the self-care. So I'm not anxious in the moments where I'm like, oh, I should be studying. Yeah, that's great.
One last thing I'll say on this, and I see Shay raise your hand again, is that rest days are incredibly valuable. Rest days, you need them. You need rest time. You need rest days to let the insights sink in from what you're doing. If you just move on to the next problem and the next concept, you may not be giving yourself the time to fully absorb what it was that you just learned from your takeaways.
Okay, yeah.
So Shay, please jump in.
Yeah, I was gonna say it sounds like you really, really like structure, which is killer. I'm the same way. I recently just made a Google Calendar and was able to lay out my work schedule, my study schedule, and I even put in like me time into the Google Calendar. That may help you and be super beneficial. I found sometimes I'll be watching Netflix and thinking the same thing. Oh, I should be studying. I'll just pull up my calendar and look at my schedule and be like, okay, it's going to be okay. I'm studying tomorrow. It'll be okay. I won't beat myself up about it. But yeah, maybe you can try that. I thought it was beneficial for me. So
No, that seems really helpful, just to like actually visibly see like, okay, I'm okay. Like,
yeah, it's super easy to make too. And all of the stuff with the course can easily be synced to it. So try it out.
Thank you.
One other idea that occurs to me, I love the ideas share. I love what Solomon put in the chat as well, is that you can budget things out. So if you have a certain goal to meet, a certain number of hours to study, or a certain number of problems to complete, once you hit those benchmarks for that day, let yourself go. Some of these things can actually be incredibly addictive. Those who are highly motivated, type A future lawyers, it's never enough. There's always more to be done. There's 89 numbered exams, a handful that are unnumbered. You don't have to do them all today or tomorrow, especially if you've got a few months to study. You've got plenty of time to cover a lot of stuff, and you don't need to cover every single released exam ever. I've made a tracking document. I've shared it before in these meetings. I'll share it again briefly now. It's the LSAT Mastery Dashboard, and it's yet another one of these trackers you can use. I'll put it with the URL in a moment. Another tracker you can use to document your progress, stay on track with what you're up to. And it's focused on inputs rather than outputs, lead indicators rather than lag indicators. So focusing on what you put in, not being tied to outcomes in terms of accuracy, but rather just knowing that you are making forward progress is ultimately the most important thing. And so if you can track that you are moving ahead in number of problems completed, classes attended, hours invested, you can set a goal. And once you hit that goal, you're done for that day. Put the books down, close the computer, relax for a bit, sleep well, and you'll hit it again the next day.
Thank you. That's helpful. I will check that out too and keep all of that in mind.
Of course. And then Ben, you're saying if you don't hit your benchmarks, what do you do? So if you don't hit your benchmarks, there's a couple of things. I mean, one thing is that acknowledge yourself that not every day is going to be a success in terms of whatever arbitrary goal you set for yourself. Just know that if you're going at this for 2 months, 4 months, 6 months or more, 180 days, 6 months, some days you're going to be sick, some days you're going to be tired, some days something else is randomly going to pop up on your agenda, like a winter storm or politics or something else. Just know that this happens on a long enough timeline, and no one day or 1 week is going to make or break you. You can always get back into it whenever you're able. And then at the same time, you can look to see what can you do to structure your day and your week and your month to maximize your odds of success. And so Shay gave some great advice on setting up a calendar with structure. That can be a tool to help you. And so if you fall off the wagon for a day or a week, and then you say, you know what, I heard that calendar tip, I didn't execute on it. Now's the time to execute on it and look to improve things for the next time.